pamphlets. The December marathon to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, which from our side corresponds with the advent of the Bhagavad Gita, but from the non-Krishna conscious people's side corresponds with Christmas time, which somehow or another has turned into a big commercial spending of money, buying gifts for everybody, for one's loved ones. It becomes a very natural fit or corresponding, giving the gift of love of Godhead, giving the gift of Krishna consciousness to others, which is applicable in all times, places, and circumstances, becomes even more important and perhaps what we like the most, more easy to do during the month of December. So I thought we would start by looking at Arjuna's glorification of the Bhagavad Gita itself, or Krishna's instructions to him, which is in the chapter, The Pandavas Retire Timely. Who here has read this chapter of the first canto? Raise their hand. Really, most people haven't read it. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna, and as we want the association of Krishna all the time, because the association of Krishna all the time means to be experiencing the ecstatic mellows of love of Godhead, which are the real sensations, thoughts, and yearnings of the pure soul. So Krishna has come as the holy name and as the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's very, very important for our spiritual growth and development to the highest stage of love of Godhead to take shelter not only of the holy name, but of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Arjuna was away from Hastinapur, which is now New Delhi, with Krishna in his kingdom of Dwarka in Gujarat on the other side of India. And he witnessed the fratricidal war of the Yadavas and the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Many months had passed by, and Maharaj Yudhishthira was concerned for what was actually happening. And he had seen and experienced many inauspicious omens or natural phenomena which certainly indicated something very, very not good for the world. He ultimately concluded that Krishna had departed the planet and that the age of Kali had commenced. So when Arjuna finally arrived back, Maharaj Yudhishthira's premonitions were proved to be true. So Arjuna says many things about the glories of his personal friendly association with Krishna. He says how he was able to conquer over all of the great generals in the battle of Kurukshetra simply by Krishna's presence with him on the chariot. So he says in verse 27, "Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space." So Srila Prabhupada's purport is very valuable because he gives a, let's say, overview of the Bhagavad Gita in a 2-page purport. Herein, Arjuna refers to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. Actually, this was the mission of Lord Chaitanya's disciples, Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis, Jiva Goswami, certainly. Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nupano Sadharma Samstapako. They very scrutinizingly went through all of the Vedic literatures, vast Vedic literatures, and they picked up the essence, or they brought forth what is the essence of those scriptures, and that is pure devotional service. We see how those who are in the position of being most authoritative representatives of Lord Chaitanya's Vani, Gauravani, as we see our Srila Prabhupada, he has the title Bhakti Vedanta, which means Vedanta, the conclusion being Bhakti, or his own Guru Maharaj, Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Siddhanta. The Siddhanta of all the Vedas is Bhakti. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says in one place that Arjuna was suffering from the bodily platform of life very acutely. In other words, he was my friends, my family members. He was ordered to fight, and he was in a very difficult situation that everyone on the opposing side he had some relationship with as friend or family member. And Krishna spoke the wisdom of the eternal nature of the soul, which ultimately dissipated his bodily platform of life. We come together as friends and family members, under the illusory energy of the Lord, like straws, twigs, and leaves falling from the trees, in a whirlpool or whirlwind and cascading, falling down water. And we stay together some time because of the force of that energy, but that same energy will break us all apart and put us in new situations. That is not the case, of course, for those who receive and nurture the Bhakti Lata Bij through the process of initiation by the proper spiritual master. Those relationships with god brothers, god sisters, god cousins, nephews, uncles, etc. Within the family of Sampradaya, those are eternal relationships. Because it is within the eternal family environment of Lord Sri Krishna and his pure devotees. So, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. The merciful Lord left behind the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself for the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. So that is the exact same principle of the Lord's incarnation in the form of Harinam Sankirtan, Kali Kalir Dham Nam Rup Avatar. Krishna has appeared in this age. His incarnation is Harinam Sankirtan. Prabhupada speaking on the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsimhadev, the 9th chapter of the 7th canto in Mayapur, the grand festival there for Lord Chaitanya's appearance in 1976, that wherever there is a disturbance and it becomes too much to bear by the demons and atheists, the faithless, the non-believers, then that means an incarnation of the Lord will appear. And Prabhupada goes on graphically to describe many things about the fallen nature of this age of Kali, the things that people do so sinful, like killing a child in the womb simply to enjoy illicit sex, that the incarnation of the Lord is already here. And that incarnation is the Harinam Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. It is described here that one can have every benefit of the Lord's presence that through the sound incarnation of the Lord, as one would have by the Lord being directly here. Simply the Lord is present here as his deities. Srinathji, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. We have Lord Ramachandra, Sita Devi, his younger brother Lakshman and Hanuman. And of course we have Sri Sri Gaura. Actually, we have a very nice relationship ourselves, the New York City Harinam Party, and all of you worshippers and devotees and congregational members of Sri Sri Gaura Mandir, because Sri Sri Gaura were, and to me still are, the Sankirtan generals of New York City. Shamakarishi Prabhu remembers. Were you there a little bit, 55th Street? No. Okay. So they were standing with Sri Sri Radha Govinda, and I had the experience to be one of the Sankirtan devotee book distributors. We also had ecstatic Harinams and also book distribution, and the experience of coming back and reporting, just like Lord Chaitanya would send out Lord Nityananda, Haridas Thakur, and others Sankirtan, and they would come back and report, the day's goings on, what happened for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. So the experience of reporting back to the Sankirtan generals, Sri Sri Gaura in the 55th Street Temple, was one of the most super ecstatic experiences I ever had in my life, right? So their pastime that they are here out in the country, in Tawako, I don't think that means that they're not having their eye on the prize of New York City also. So similarly, you as their pujaris and worshippers and servants should also know their mood. One time Srila Prabhupada, I was visiting a temple, and he asked the devotee who was the head pujari, And Prabhupada asked the devotee, so are the deities happy? And the devotee was very flat. I don't know, Shmuel. Well, you're supposed to. You're their servant. So, of course, we know that Lord Chaitanya is pleased when the fallen conditioned souls, or those who are his long-lost devotees, receive the facility to come back home. Even in the Bhakti Center, they're reading now in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ajamil rescued by the Vishnudutas. And that story is many things. That is actually a book chosen by Prabhupada for mass distribution. I remember 37 years ago, we were distributing tens of thousands of them. No longer than that, 38, 39 years ago. So that even just a little glimpse, not even with the purest motivation, calling the name of the Lord can save one from the greatest fear. And actually in Ajamil's case, gave him, and we can distribute the book, a second chance. He was given, his life was prolonged, and he was given the chance to perfect himself by that slight association with the Lord's devotees, the Vishnudutas. So, and Prabhupada remarks how the Lord is always pleased with the living entity, and when the living being declares himself to be an atheist or a non-devotee, he's in an unsound condition of life. And there's the famous statement by Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita 3.27, the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they know the inner purpose of the Lord. The devotee is very expert. He can actually understand what is the real intention and real desire of the Lord in all circumstances. When Rupa Goswami was pressed to overcome all humility and shyness and speak what he was writing, in that case, Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava, the Lord Chaitanya, in the holy place of Haridas Thakur's Bhajan, Siddhavakul in Puri, in the presence of Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, he, in one verse, described how the dust raised by the hooves of the cows and calves as they're coming back with Krishna and Balaram to the village of Vrindavan at the end of day at dusk, creates a type of darkness or haze. But the gopis, in particular, what to speak of all the other residents of Vrindavan, know that that dust storm means that Krishna is arriving back. And Prabhupada gives a purport there how the modes of material nature always create confusion, but pure devotees, they can understand what Krishna is doing in all times, places, and circumstances. Just like the residents of Vrindavan, they are never unaware of what Krishna is doing for even a moment. Prabhupada says in one place, for those who are actually engaged in the preaching work of Krishna consciousness, there's no question of uncertainty. So, yes, because they know the inner purpose of the Lord. Therefore, they take all types of risks in approaching conditioned souls to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. My dear sir, you are so kind, you are so learned, you are so intelligent, but please forget all of that and hear what Lord Chaitanya has to say. Or, my dear sir, you're simply spoiling your time engaged in nonsense activities. Please engage in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada moved on to Vrindavan in April of 1976, speaking on the same chapter. And in one particular class, It was just all about the importance of preaching, going out of your way, taking all risks. Not that I stay in Vrindavan, I stay in the temple, I stay in the holy place, take care of my own peace of mind, my own serenity. Prabhupada used the English term, oil your own machine. No, it's by far better. Even you're not totally purified, even you're not totally self-realized, that you go out. Krishna is much more pleased with that. And Priyakritama, one who tries, even one is imperfect. And Prabhupada went on to say, if even the smallest brahmachari would go out and distribute the Nadia Prakash for 1 paisa, and spend all day and come back and have only distributed 2 or 3, then he would see his Guru Maharaj become so soft-hearted and loving to that, rank, bottom of the totem pole brahmachari. Oh, you were so nice. You've done such a wonderful thing. If Krishna is pleased, then you don't have to worry about how he will make advancement. And in that same lecture, what is the use of tapasya? What is the use of being even a brahmachari or a sannyasi if you don't please Krishna, you don't have love of God? All useless. So this is the best way to please Krishna, is to give other people a chance. And the more that you do this, then the more your intimate relationship with Krishna, how you are meant to love Krishna and please Krishna, that will be revealed to you very rapidly. The more you try to expand Krishna consciousness. And that was the burning, intense mission that Srila Prabhupada came to this country with and started the Krishna consciousness movement. Because he took that order as his heart and soul. Our Guru Parampara is extremely potent and powerful. Practically speaking, by taking initiation in this Madhva, Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya, Rupanuga, Saraswat Sampradaya, the potency of all great personalities in our line, you are their disciple also in Parampara, and all blessing comes down through that chain of disciplic succession. So Prabhupada was fully blessed and fully empowered with all the blessings of Parampara, and the greatest desire of all the acharyas and of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to benedict the world with love of Godhead. Prabhupada knew this very well. He spoke in a very precarious and dependent position 5 days before landing, after 30 days at sea, off the coast of Newfoundland in the North Atlantic Ocean. My dear brothers, I emphatically say unto you that you will not achieve the mercy of the Supreme Lord unless and until Srimati Radharani becomes pleased with you. Borijan Prabhu, speaking on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's disappearance day a few days ago in Vrindavan, he was relating Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's one-time Prikram of Braj Mandal in 1932, where he was doing Gaur-Mandal Parikram every year. But there's one time he went, and he made this statement that Srimati Radharani is completely selfless in her desire to please Krishna. So therefore, only those who have a similar mood will ultimately be able to please her. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, his own Guru Maharaj, Sri Varshavanavi Devi, Bimala Prasad, the mercy of Bhakti Devi, ultimately Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's eternal identity in relationship to Shri Radha and Krishna is extremely intimate. His name is Nayan Mani Manjari. Nayan means the inner eye or pupil, the most intimate window to the inner soul. So he, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is that great saintly spiritual master who bestows intense devotion to Krishna at various places at times around the world. I've been looking at the book of Vaikuntanath Das, who joined the movement in like 1967 or 68, or he was around New York in 1966. And he was just explaining, whenever you would come into Prabhupada's presence, it would be like the most intense, luscious, spiritual, loving ecstasy. All your problems and cares were gone, and you were just like experiencing like the most intense joy. I just wanted to be with Prabhupada. And actually, he was one of those devotees. Wherever Prabhupada went, he would go. He went to Montreal, he went to Los Angeles, Prabhupada went back to Boston, he went over there, and he just wanted to be around that. And so many of Prabhupada's disciples, they had experienced that Prabhupada was just like lifted to me to such an incredible height. And Prabhupada gave all credit to his Guru Maharaj, empowering him to do this. Prabhupada came back to Calcutta in his triumph in 1970-71, bringing his selected dancing white elephants, very talented and beautiful boys and girls of America and Europe. And people were like astounded, especially the elder generation were crying that Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivinoda Swami has made up for all of the atrocities and persecution that we were subjected to at the hands of the British and all of these European people who came and conquered and pilfered and stole from our country. And now he has come and brought back converts from these. It was amazing. So one old Calcutta friend came to Prabhupada, and he was telling Prabhupada how he had met a yogi. And this yogi could make an apple appear from behind your head, just like magic. And Prabhupada said, wow, well, that's very, very good. Very nice. Just like I went to your country, I had no money, and 40 rupees, which couldn't even be exchanged in American money. And I just had a pair of card toes. And I sat down under a tree in Tompkinson Square Park, Tompkinson. Right? And I just started chanting Hare Krishna. And some very nice boys and girls, they gathered around and they wanted to hear about Krishna. And we started a center. And then some of those nice boys and girls, they went and started another center in San Francisco. And then one in Los Angeles, in Boston. And now, in 4 years, we have 54 centers. And in all of those centers, we have so many apples. So whose potency is greater? By his, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's strong desire, the holy name of Krishna will spread throughout this entire world, from every town and village on the world, from the highest mountains down to the seas and the valleys, rivers and streams. Everyone will chant the holy name of Krishna. And this next statement, which never fails to just like, as the vast mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu conquers all directions, a flood of transcendental ecstasy will certainly cover the land. And when there's such a flood, then the seed of material desire is drowned. Actually, that's how Advaita Acharya signaled to Lord Chaitanya his mission is now complete, which signaled to Lord Chaitanya to go even deeper into the madness feelings of separation. Tell Lord Chaitanya who is now acting like a madman, that we also are acting like madmen also. Rice is no longer required or in demand in the marketplace because everyone has become mad with love of Godhead. That is his order. From that point on, Lord Chaitanya's feelings in separation from Krishna doubled in intensity. But of course, that's another subject matter. A flood of transcendental ecstasy will certainly cover the land. And here's where the bar is set. When all the poor, fallen, sinful, miserable, living entities are made happy, that means Krishna consciousness becomes the predominant thing on this planet. Then the Vaishnava's desire is fulfilled. So there's a lot of work to be done. So Maya, the illusory energy, she's very expert in diminishing one's enthusiasm or placing doubts. Prabhupada said, doubts are, doubts are stumbling blocks. With one kick of my boot, I can kick out all of these stumbling blocks. And that is done by trying to please the spiritual master. So there is no mystery. It is very clear to understand that pleasing the actual pure devotee, pleasing the actual spiritual master, pleasing this Guru Parampara means to take up the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. And the best way to do it is to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books via the, let's say, atmosphere of non-stop Harinam Sankirtan. So we have such nice experience that distributing books as devotee, dressing as devotee, appearing as devotee, proclaiming ourselves into the devotee, where people can see, what is it? Vidya Vadu Jivanam. This Harinam Sankirtan is the life and soul of all transcendental knowledge. The book is an expansion of the ecstasy of chanting and dancing in Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. Or the book is to convince us to chant and dance in the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. So both are inseparable. People are looking for Krishna. Everyone is, but particularly there are many candidates who have achieved this human form of life in this particular time where Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada writes in the first canto, within the memory of everyone. That means we're all supposed to remember where we were 500 years ago. It wasn't so long ago. Maybe we were a chipmunk. We ate a chickpea that was like left over from the plate of one of Lord Chaitanya's associates, and now here we are like this. Who knows? Prabhupada said, who knew you American boys would come to me? Who knew I would come to your country? Who knew I would come to my Guru Maharaj's shelter? These are all Krishna's mysteries. So this is the conclusion of the purport. We can't read it all due to time constraints. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances and that the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence, which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the battle of Kurukshetra. So the more that we realize the glory of our eternal loving relationship with Krishna, Krishna Sambandha, the more we'll actually feel real compassion for people who are bereft of that knowledge and facility. What to speak of being attracted to any type of illusory happiness that such forgetful persons think is very good. We will not at all be bewildered. So, we're pushing on in New York City. I was actually here on the 23rd of July, and knowing full well what was going to happen that day, but now I think most everybody knows. They're trying to do a change of management and direction in the official New York City ISKCON Brooklyn Temple. Yes? Everybody knows? Something? So for us, the main thing that means is that the way Jayadvaita Maharaj and Hansarupa were explaining to me the legal term, our position, the brahmacharis, and we also have two very determined ladies, we're called strict adherents. That our position, as per the guidelines of the stipulation of what is ISKCON, and as per the view of the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, is that such strict adherents are meant to be sheltered in the temple with the deity in a serene ashram environment so that they can be protected, fortified, nurtured, and strong enough to go out and do the field work. So that ain't been happening. For the near 6 years that we've been doing it, and it's getting a little tiresome because we have a lot of people who want to join or could join, and our facility is very small. Let's just say we're bursting at the seams. So I don't know how much longer that's going to drag on. And if and when whatever happens, how quick it's going to be to allow for proper facilitation of the Harinam and book distribution. Not that we're brought into an empty building and have to staff the place and run the place to the extent of the preaching. Now, Vaishya Shekhar Prabhu has been named as one of the GBC members. I had the same conversation with him in Govardhan. He said, "You bet your life you got to protect the preaching." Similar opinion from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, who has helped us tremendously by, as far as possible, sharing the facility of the Bhakti Center with us. That's where we're living right now, in close proximity to the Bhakti Center and 26 2nd Avenue. But all of you who have visited the Bhakti Center know it's a small facility in and of itself. So the main thing we're trying to do now is to expand, either to get another apartment near where we are, or maybe take whatever guaranteed incoming funds that we have and maybe get a bigger place of our own outright. So we just have to see. So I'd like to conclude at that point. I'll say this. Srila Prabhupada is our highest example of overcoming adversity and tolerating all inconveniences brought about by the material nature to keep on pushing Krishna consciousness. I remember when I was in 846 7th Avenue in the spring of 1981, and the 10th Canto, Volume 3, which was the last chapter that Srila Prabhupada translated, Brahma Vimohan Leela, chapter 13. Actually, this place, Brahmakund, which is near Bamsivat and Gopishvar Mahadev, a very exalted sacred place. It is a place where Lord Shiva and Narada Muni in particular were blessed to understand, were blessed with a Madhurya Bhakta form of a gopi to enter into the most sacred Rasa Leela, this most exalted part of Vrindavan, the place of Seva Kunj and Nidhuvan, the place of Rasa Leela, is the place of the 7 Goswami temples, particularly Sri Radharaman. It was brought out recently. Monkey Bihari is Krishna who killed Kamsa. And many different type of people saw that, a lot of non-devotees. So seeing Monkey Bihari is not such a rare darshan. Seeing Radha Govinda is Govinda who spoke the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna who spoke the Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Less people saw, or less people were aware. So to take the darshan of Govinda is a more rare opportunity. But to take the darshan of Radharaman, who is Krishna, the lover of Srimati Radharani, that's only for those who are allowed to come to Bamsi Bhat. That is most rare. So that is at that place. Ramakund. So Brahma Vimohan Lila. Prabhupada was translating, and he was practically unable to move. I don't want to describe more Prabhupada's condition. If you look in this 10th canto, volume 3, as it was published at that time, there was a note from the publishers that the doctor attending Srila Prabhupada told us that an ordinary person would be crying out from the intense pain, but Srila Prabhupada's disciples were amazed to see Prabhupada work with complete concentration and perfect clarity of mind, just as he had done previously translating all the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they go on to conclude that this volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam will be an eternal testimony to the fact that no material impediments can impede the activities of the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in trying to follow just a little bit in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps, we're very much amazed that in nearly 6 years that we can say that we've made Harinam happen 7 days a week since the spring of 2013, 6 hours a day without stop. And now we're getting kind of old and worn out. There's a lot of younger men who are coming forward to help. So Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is eternal. It is meant to go on, and we're all meant to help it go on. And no matter how we help, whether we're out there chanting or we're facilitating, in the eyes of Krishna, it's equal. And Prabhupada kind of concludes that if the devotees of Krishna don't go out and give the holy name to people, then who's going to do it? And if we don't do it, then there's no hope. So Srila Prabhupada came here, and they have Prabhupada saying, it's there in the movie, the mantra, the Hare Krishna movement of Yadubar and Vishaka, that I want to start a spiritual revolution. So we should have that faith. And we have the potency in our hand. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sharvata Shaktis. And Prabhupada said of these big materialists, they're simply building bricks and stones, and Maya will come and knock them all down. But a sacrifice for the Sankirtan movement, that is an eternal monument in the Loka Vrindavan that you are building. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Maybe you can describe more about what you are doing as a Sankirtan party in New York City.
What do we do?
Yes.
We chant our rounds, take prasad, read a verse a day. We try to do this every day, and Maya goes away. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any other questions? Now, anyway, you want me to say something like, what do we do, or?
How is it going, and what kind of progress?
Well, the main thing that we try to impart to everyone, and I'm doing it myself out of just sheer necessity, is get up and chant lots of rounds before Mangal Arti and really enter into Shuddha Sattva Gun, so that when the beast is up and roaring in Manhattan, you're riding the tiger, not being trampled underfoot. That's one thing, strong sadhana, and just keeping it going every single day. Now it's subway season. After trying years, okay, 45 degrees, no, it's too cold. I have 50 degrees, 55, 60 degrees. Any temperature below 60 degrees, we're in the subway. So that basically means mid-April to, Halloween to mid-April. And we have like 6 really good spots where I can contain a party of up to like 15 people. And in a lot of ways, the subways, more books go out there than in the park. We're doing our best with the limited housing facility that we have. But if I could, like right now I'm able to like take care of like 10, 11, 12 men, a couple of ladies. But if I could double that, then we get double the results. And also if I had a temple with a Bhakta program, there's one young man, he came out of the L train the other day named Antonio. Never seen us before, totally enthralled, didn't have any money. He read the Reservoir of Pleasure and the Anjay, cover to cover. We fed him khichdi. He practically fell in love with us. If I could say, hey, what do you do? Oh, I graduated high school. I'm just figuring out. I'm delivering. I'm making home delivery for a Chinese restaurant. I just said to the kid, why don't you come live with us and give it a try? Okay, but I don't have that facility. That's how many devotees were made in 55th Street. I was made like that. Actually, Niranjana Swami, who up in Hartford was given a surprise 65th appearance day, birthday today, December 10th. He was the Bhakta leader in 55th Street at the time, and I walked in there and he just said, I told him my story. Why don't you just move in and give it a try? Actually, he was more heavy. He said, just give it up. And, I thought about it. I cried a little bit. And I said, okay. And I did it. And I never, and who am I, So there's so many people like that. You give them a fighting chance. That's what Prabhupada would say. What is the problem? Come live with us. Not ashram living in an urban environment doesn't work anymore. That's what I was told. I say it does work. Anyway, so anything else that we're going to respect the time sequence? We got 3 or 4 minutes. Prabhuji,
One question.
speak loud because I'm going deaf.
So I have a question. I got an email like a few months ago about a project you guys are trying to raise Lakshmi for.
Here we have a GoFundMe going. We're trying to raise enough money. Our idea at the time was to get a studio or 1-bedroom apartment near where we are, which right now is something $1,700 to $2,400 a month. So we haven't reached that goal yet, but at the same time we're thinking it's real nice being in Manhattan, not having to ride the motored out subway all the way out into, but if we take the same guaranteed money that we have from book distribution, monthly donors, and this GoFundMe, maybe we get something bigger that, just have to surrender to the subway ride.
Do you think it would be a good idea for you to like tell people like if they want to like help you, like if you want to just like make a 2-minute pitch about, if you want to make a 2-minute pitch about like that GoFundMe so that people are
Well,
aware?
that's the basic information right there.
Okay.
You can Vishnu Chitta over here, will be at a table outside and, anything, giving something to help purchase Bhagavad Gitas, help us pay our BDT debt, or, one-time donation, monthly donation, or something. It's all the same,
It would be better if you tell us like how much you are short of and like in front of everybody so that someone can help you out, like,
Well,
rather than putting it on the table, if you can.
well, the GoFundMe, it started in July, and it's something at like 13,700. We wanted to try to raise 20,000, and it just kind of like stalled out. It hasn't really done anything in the past couple of months.
Okay, I'll give $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
I'll give you $1,000, like just one time, sorry, not month, but one time I'll give you $1,000.
We put in our website from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 3, of all a person might sacrifice his wealth, his words, and intelligence. A sacrifice for the Sankirtan movement is the most glorious. One who does so is recognized by the Lord and endowed with his blessing. And also, we created a year ago in September a non-profit, tax-exempt religious organization called Yuga Dharma Ashram, which is tax deductible. We have an IRS number that could be supplied to you. You have that number? Yes. So instead of giving Uncle Sam money, you can help the devotees of Krishna. Thank you. And again, because Sri Sri Gaur Nitai are the Sankirtan Lords of New York City, that it is connected, not kind of. So it's not that you're here and we're there. Of course, you should go on to build a magnificent mandir in Parsippany, so the deities can have a transcendental palace. This is a nice place too, the governor's mansion, but it can get bigger, more facility. Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Sri Ram Lakshmana ki jai. Sri Ram ki jai.